of the goals has to be to redefine that social network and community, because you're leaving one that's been with you for a good period of time and one that has to be replaced. This new phase, this is what I have to try to redefine.
The lessons you're going to learn firsthand will apply to anybody in different areas of their own pursuits.
Good afternoon. We are Wednesday, May 11th. Another time here with Justin to record our next episode, Series 6. And you got me now looking up numbers to see what the angel definition is. So 6 happens to be kind of balance and comfort, which somewhat's related to today's topic, which is going to be kind of the new norm of reframing and growing, obviously, the social network, which is critical, I think, to maintaining our civility and longevity of having a good life. Mm-hmm. In the corporate world, obviously, we have a very extensive social network with our colleagues, customers, and that keeps us busy every day. But now, just as we talked in episode 3 about time management, a little bit of a struggle, with the social aspect, because you're not surrounded by people any longer. I mean, even with the pandemic, working remotely, we were still doing a lot of Zoom meetings. I personally was making sure that I would connect with everybody at least every other day on the phone or by Zoom, and make sure that was being kept up. Now today, when I wake up, Mom is there and we do what we need to do. I come into the office, spend a little time with you, and then the rest of it is trying to figure out what's next, right? So I think a struggle for us in our encore year is going to be, how do we reframe our social environment? And where do we go to bring new members into our world? And what is that any longer? I mean, do we need a bunch anymore? I mean, there's all sorts of studies out there to talk about this. If there's a magical number, some believe there's magical numbers. Others, say you only need to have a handful. I mean, as you know me, I haven't had very many outside of family individuals that were very close. Mm-hmm. I mean, throughout my years at each company I was with, I've had a few very close that I would consider friends, grew from colleagues and work associates into true friends. And I still have them, but there's only really 2 of them, that I would consider of that caliber, and I'm going to try my best to maintain my connectivity with them. As you know, I'm also kind of a pest that way of reaching out and being an organizer, which I think is critical. But I found this very interesting, and for our discussion this afternoon, there have been studies that mentioned that loneliness is as harmful to physical health as smoking 15 packs of cigarettes a day. Mm-hmm. And just pause and think of that for a moment. The idea of being lonely would do as much damage to your health as smoking 15 packs a day. That was pretty crazy, and it jumped out at me. Not that I think that in any way that I'll be lonely, because we have the distinct pleasure of having, you and your family and Kristen and her family here in Indianapolis. So this grandparent phase will help fill the void, will allow us to grow with that and spend more time with it, which is great. But trying to figure out, since I'm a very social person, how do I feel that, and who will be my next set of friends, whatever that definition is. I think one thing I know that I've got to do is I have to remember, because I take that step too far at times of thinking everybody's going to be my friend, and recognizing that that's not necessarily how it's going to be. You have to define that and then go out and seek ways in which to bring that into the social environment that's going to be lacking that very hectic day of social interacting at the office or as such. I think that's really going to be challenging because I've sensed that now through the pandemic, there's a little bit of hesitation in when you're meeting folks or you're getting reconnected with folks. I think, Jay, you mentioned this a little bit in your latest PRST newsletter. And for those of you out there that haven't checked Jay's new newsletter out, putting a plug for him, he's got a new newsletter called PRST.
Pursuit.
Pursuit.
It's not called PRST.
Well,
it's Pursuit.
Well, but it's
the letters PRST. Yeah.
PRST. So, but a lot of great content in there. I'm not saying that just because I'm with him here this afternoon. He's my son, but there is a lot of great content. He's got some great videos from experts with some very thought-provoking topics. He's obviously pushing his passion and his definition of his world. But do check that out. But one thing, Jay, you mentioned in there when you were talking about you just come back from a conference, and I'm going to look at that. So since if you're just listening to me, I'm looking on the phone where I have the copy of the newsletter. You mentioned about just coming back from your conference you had last week, but you talked about taking inventory of people in your life. Now you were mentioning more about mentors in this particular subject that you were talking about, just focusing on the mentor. But your statement of taking inventory of the people in your life, I think that's going to be very critical for those of us moving into our own core phase of where are we today when we leave our jobs? Who are those people that will truly remain with us? Besides our family and close friends and neighbors, who else happen to be in our life? As you said, I need to take an inventory of that and reassess where some of those individuals outside of family may be falling, and how I keep that contact going. I mean, I've tried my best through the years to stay in touch with very close friends. The best example is my college roommate. We still do a very good job after 44 years of staying in contact. But we haven't had the opportunity to really meet as often as I would like. I think that's important for us at this phase of life, to reach out to those people that are important, not just to reach out and say hello. I think that's very critical because, again, being very social beings that we are, we need that to maintain our health and wellness. But I also think it's going to be important to, now that we're being able to get back and really get to meet people, to find ways to get together so you're physically with those people that are close to you, to gain that little bit of closeness. That's going to be important. Because if we don't have that, as the study indicated and others point to, that could have a detrimental effect on our health. And if we're going to have a meaningful encore, a meaningful performance in this new life of ours, obviously health has got to be as best as it can be. But I think our mental attitude is going to have to be even better at this phase of life. As we know, in this extraordinary time that we live in, there's enough to challenge that and challenge our mindset. And we're going to need positive people around us. So as I point those out, I also have purposely left out, okay, if those are important, where do we find them now? I mean, obviously, we have what's right next to us, our family, our neighborhoods, but we also have lost those peripheral activities, not just work, but if we think about when our kids are growing up in our life, we have a lot of peripheral activities that get us connected to people. From what our kids are doing, we meet other parents, depending the activities, sporting events that they're in. We meet others. We all have a like common ground, so we've got that constantly flowing and keeping us engaged. But as as the kids get older and those wane, those individuals we had as friends may also have waned because they were more situated based on the point in time and the relationship we had at that moment. It's still great to connect with some of those folks that you met along the way, but it's no more than a passing hello or an occasional get together. In this time of our life, I think it's going to be very challenging for us to try to sustain that connectivity But I also think maybe the more of the challenge is, where do we go to get it? Outside of community. Obviously, we can do some volunteering. Volunteering opens up, whatever new avenue it presents to us. But how much can we grasp from that if we're only volunteering a couple of days a week, and depending on what that is, that you're doing, what will that do to expand those individuals? Or do we say to ourselves, it's okay that our community is going to be smaller? I don't have the answers to these. I'm just talking this afternoon to say I think those are the challenges in this phase of life.
Quit saying
that
challenges. Like that's.
Well, I
that's
like challenge.
But that's putting a negative tone to it. It's not a challenge. So you think too much. If listeners don't know that already, count how many times. Take a drink every time Terry says think. You can't drive home after doing that. Like you don't. Not everything has to. This is one of my goals for us working together and us doing this podcast together, is to get you to think less and relax more and just let things happen as they're supposed to. Now, when you let things happen as they're supposed to, you can put yourself in the right positions to let them be favorable, but you don't have to. The comment about taking inventory was, I said in the newsletter, you needed to have mentors who can push you and can advise you and keep you moving forward. And not very many people have mentors. So the take inventory was, how many mentors do you have in your life? But you can also take inventory of how many people that you surround yourself with, family included, share the same vision, are doing the things that you want to be doing. I don't remember where I heard this, but I feel like I heard it back in like high school or even college, that every 7 years your group of friends change. And I look back over time, and that's kind of true, which kind of lines up with you middle school, then you get to high school, then you get to college, you get your first job and change jobs. Now you have kids. And so it would make sense that every 7 years you get a new core group of friends, and maybe every once in a while somebody transitions up or transcends up to the next group. But who you're friends with 10 years ago, 15 years ago, you're most likely not going to be friends with today. And I would almost argue maybe you shouldn't be, because then you're not probably growing. And I think people come into our lives for reasons. I've talked about chapters before. I think that people can be a part of your chapter, and that's okay if in that next chapter they don't carry on. And you have to realize that the people in your life today, or the people in your life in the past, they served a purpose for you, and you served a purpose for them. And when you both kind of max out your ability to help that person, then it's time to move on in both of your lives. And it's okay. And actually, having friendships that fade isn't necessarily a bad thing. It's more of a beautiful thing that this relationship was everything that it was supposed to be, exhausted itself, and now it's time for you to continue to move forward, and you need somebody else to challenge you and be that friend to you, and that's okay. That doesn't mean that those friendships in the past that were really close, to your point, it's passing hello, but you could probably sit down with some of those people and pick right back up, because you did have that deep connection before. It's just not deep going forward. Right. So I think that, where do you find it? A couple things. In your encore, but I think this is relative to everybody at every stage of your life. It's not just a retirement thing or an encore thing. No matter where you are in life, if you take that inventory and the people around you don't live the lives that looks like what you want to live, then it's time to find a new group of people. You're the average of the 5 people you spend the most time with. Well, if the 5 people you spend the most time with aren't getting to levels of life that you want to be in, then you got to move them behind. So one thing is, look for the people who are doing the things and living the life that you want to live, and surround yourself with them. Go be around them. Go do the things they're doing and get to know them that way. The other thing is, go do the things that you want to do, and just naturally you will meet people. We're social beings. So if, I don't foresee this being a part of my story, but I've gotten into doing hot yoga. So over my workout career, there was, working out at the Y, and then there was CrossFit, and, made friends everywhere I went. And now I go to hot yoga 4 days a week. Probably not going to become real good friends with all the women in my class, because most of the time it's like me and one other guy. But right. they have a similar interest. They like to do yoga to take care of themselves. That if I was looking for a group of people to become close with, that would be a great place to start, because we have this common thing. So I would say, if your inventory doesn't support where you want to go or the life you want to live, that's one way to go, and go find those people. And if you don't know or you don't see anybody that's living the life that you want or that you want to be around, then just go do the things you want to do, and then let people that are doing that as well naturally become friends.
Right. No, and I think you're spot on, Jay. I've used the term challenge and will continue to use the word challenge because I think it has for me, I think it sets a very positive direction that we need goals, we need a challenge in order to push us to the next level.
All right, comment in the comments if you're watching this on YouTube. Is challenge when you think of the word challenge, is that a positive word or a negative word? I would change the word challenge to opportunity. You have this opportunity to find new people. You have this opportunity to build new friends, opportunity to surround yourself with different people. Like, I think to me, opportunity is a positive way to look at it. And I do think that words matter in the tone that you set out there, because to me, if you have this challenge of finding people to be around and you struggle for a little bit, now this challenge is hard. It's an obstacle. You're not doing it. The opportunity that every time you meet somebody, it's an opportunity. It's an opportunity to have a new friend, to meet a new friend, meet somebody who's going to be important in your life. I just think that challenge sets the tone that it's going to be hard and it's going to be work, and it will be work, but in a bad way. And that if it doesn't go as quickly as you want, then people might give up.
Yeah. Well, I think that's a good perspective. I'll just challenge that. Only in a sense that still we need, at least I do, and I think others do as well, need to be pushed. You need to have that incentive to learn something new. To refocus is something new in this phase of life. You don't have the luxuries of others around you at, let's say, your beck and call, because you walk into an office and you're among 50 people. You're assigned to a project. Through all of that, you gain closeness, you gain commonality, and then you find some folks that have commonality outside of work, and you start to build that as it happens naturally. Now, when you are in this phase, like we've talked earlier, you don't want to just be waking up each day and just barely doing anything, right? You want to set goals. One of those goals, I think, and the purpose of today's discussion is that one of the goals has to be to redefine that social network and community, because you're leaving one that's been with you for a good period of time, and one that has to be replaced with something new. So exactly to your point, I think this is the opportunity to ensure that the individuals are seeking the same direction as you, the same enthusiasm that you have, that they're all positive, to have more positive around you than we may have been able to have in the past.
Let's say, like, if you look at, you mentioned your history of friends, you have over your however many years of working, 44 years of working, a couple people that you would say were close friends. Like, I don't think that work necessarily is the best social network, because the commonality between you and your coworkers in most scenarios, not all, most scenarios, is the paycheck. You're at that employer because you want to get paid. And maybe over time, it's not to say you can't build good friendships at work, but it's not guaranteed. Just because you work with people every day doesn't mean that you like them. Chances are you probably hate them. So I don't think that it's the safe way. It's just like income. It's safe to have a W-2 job. Well, I don't really think it's that safe, because they can take the job away from you whenever they want. But there's that safety there. It's safe to build friends at work because you're there, you have this commonality with the employer, but that's not always a guarantee that you're going to build lifelong relationships and friends and people that are really deep friends beyond just work. Like, I've got Darlene and you here. I've got Taylor Schulte with the AGC, but then I have a tremendous network of people that I don't work with that I actually want to be around because we have a commonality above and beyond just employer. Like, I don't think I ever want to work in a big organization. I don't want to deal with, like, I want to be around people. I'm social. I don't want to deal with office politics. I don't want to deal with the emotions of people who I have to work with that I don't really get to choose. Like, I tasted that not too long ago, and it was by no means a bad experience, but there were moments like, I don't want to deal with this. I don't want somebody's feelings getting hurt over something that was not what was said and misinterpreted, and worry about walking on eggshells because somebody thinks that this was said when it wasn't, or it was interpreted this way. Like, I don't want to deal with that. And the reason it was interpreted that way is we aren't close friends. So, like, someone who's my close friend would never interpret something that way because they know that, I'm not mansplaining when I'm trying to explain something that's unique to my profession to someone who's not in my profession. So, like, I don't think I ever want to work in a big organization. I want to keep my organization small and then just spend all of my social capital with the people that are like-minded, and not like-minded that they don't challenge each other. We believe everything to the, like, I don't want to be like in an echo chamber. I want to be challenged and have new ideas brought to me, but I want to be around people who want that as well. Right. So yeah, I don't think that the employer is the best place to find lifelong friendships or relationships.
True. I think that's true.
Not that it can't be done, but I don't think just because you're around them every day that you're naturally going to build relationships that will mean anything.
Oh, I think that's, again, spot on and true. It's just that you spend a considerable amount of your time, with individuals when you're mainly in a corporate environment, right? I mean, you spend a large amount of your time with a certain group of people. Mm-hmm. And through that can become some very wonderful relationships and that can develop. I had the great fortune of having such a relationship with a couple of my bosses in those years. Now, granted, for me, because my track record is only with a few companies, but I had the great fortune of two individuals becoming very dear friends. One individual was my first boss, as you remember, Jim, no longer with us, but we became extremely good friends, almost can classify it as family-like, mm-hmm. with him and his wife Marilyn, and so forth. And then my current or previous boss, Lori, I was with her with 3 different companies, and we've developed an extremely wonderful friendship that will probably last for quite some time. But so you're right, it's not going to be often, but when you have that blessing of that happening, it's no different than I met Jim and Lori in some other way. It mm-hmm. just happened to be at the work, right, through the companies that I had to be in at. So the idea of ending with friendship is not what I'm trying to define with today's discussion. It's that aspect of, in our life, the social community is critical to our well-being. It also leads to impacts to health. And since we talked about the longevity, that having a meaningful longevity is going to me to redefine that social network, mm-hmm. because now that social network of mine is gone, and I have to replace it with something. I think you're right, Jay, that I have to stop thinking about it too much and just let it happen somewhat in an organic way. Mm-hmm. So as we're trying to do for those listeners is just point out some things. And again, I'm still going to be in the challenge mode because I like that challenge to drive me. The challenge of being a particular person, a challenge of being the husband that I want to be, the challenge of the father that I still need to be. Now I get to be a grandparent, so there'll be challenges with being a grandparent and becoming a better grandparent as the grandkids grow older. There's still I will call it the selfish part of our life where we have to worry about taking care of ourselves. Mm-hmm. And that is doing what we can within our immediate family, doing what we can with our friends, but seeking out, as we had, I think, a previous discussion. I don't think we recorded in one of our episodes, but we've had a discussion on this about being selfish of taking care of yourself outside of everything else, mm-hmm. and doing that for the right reasons. And that's where I'm looking at this particular phase of life of helping me get better at doing that, of taking care of myself. And I think as much as that is important to me, the aspect of being around people is very important to me. And I've tripped many times in life over that because, as you've caught me on, I take relationships, whether they're casual, and then I immediately try to get them to be more developed than they need to be. I'm always very thankful to people that have crossed my path, and I've had, many wonderful people cross my path, and I know some of them were only for a period of time. There are some who I wished would have been able to keep for a longer period of time. But for whatever reasons, those have gone away, they've gone away. So I think for our encore phase, identifying the right attitude to have in developing what will become a new social norm for us, we'll have to learn to accept, because I think each of us will have different tolerance levels of what we think we may want to have. I'm also have been very good at being independent and not worrying so much about who I have around me. As much as I cherish people and relationships, I also am very good at being by myself. So I kind of speak a little with forked tongue, if you would, that I speak about how important that is to me, but I also say that I'm okay with being by myself. I only say that because I think it's also critical where we need to have that alone time to do what's necessary, to reevaluate ourselves, to check ourselves, to make sure we're not being too far out of line with what's necessary, to take care of what we need to, because things don't go away, right, Jay? I mean, still have obligations to where I need to have obligations to, to mom, to the family, to those friends of ours. You're always needed for some reason. And I think that becomes more critical at this age because of the fact that for all of us, as we age, that social environment becomes smaller. That network becomes smaller. And if there's people that need you, you need to be ready. You need to be ready for them. And that's part of what gives us a higher purpose in life, right? There's a quote I found that I also think is important for us to kind of have a good thought process around, and it's from an Annie Dillard from her book, The Writing Life. And she talks about how we spend our days is, of course, how we spend our lives. What we do with this hour and that one is what we are doing. I had to read that several times, but I think that's very important as we're developing our new norm in a new social environment. And I think it circles back around to your point, Jay, of making sure you're surrounding yourself with individuals that share your same passion, your same enthusiasm, and have the positive energy. Because if we're living this hour and that hour, that is how we are living our lives. It's not that we're living our lives for any other reason other than to take care of what's in front of us, to develop more opportunities to enrich our lives, but to serve that greater purpose in life is also very important. And I think this phase of life will allow me to find a greater purpose and spend more time developing that and doing that. I haven't figured it out yet. I mean, I'm only 5 months into it, and hopefully I'll have another 30 plus years. But somewhere along the line, I hope that my new community, I will begin to have others that will keep pushing me, who will keep challenging me, that I will have some mentors. I think mentors at this phase of life, I was thinking about this after I read your article. I think in this phase of life, mentoring may even become a little more important to help with coming settled with here and have different questions, or I'll have different questions. And, those mentors can be from various capacities. Obviously, some will be older than myself who are already there and living it and can look to them for that mentoring and guidance. I look to individuals that, my peers who could still help. But I also look to, to you, to Kristen, from afar, hearing what you two talk about what some of your friends and acquaintances, I can look to that in an odd way as mentoring to me as well as saying, hey, it may not be a bad thought to be that way,
Mm-hmm.
right? So I think those are all very, very critical thought processes. Some that I think will still complete a move to become more accepting of an avenue that I don't even know exists yet,
Mm-hmm.
of where this new social life could be for myself and for mom. Um, Another interesting moment in this whole aspect of regrowing and reframing. Um, Gentleman Bill Zilligan gave me a book. It's called Younger Next Year by Henry Lodge, who's a doctor, and then a Chris Crowley. So shout out to Bill for sharing this book with me.
Mm-hmm.
Not sharing, he actually gave me the copy. So I appreciate that. And then it was a chapter, which when I first saw the chapter, it just took me back. It said, "How's your wife?" And I thought, well, that's an odd title for a chapter.
Mm-hmm.
How's your wife? Because, when you think about that, you have another thought about
Mm-hmm.
somebody asking you how your wife is.
Mm-hmm.
But actually, it was a very intriguing title for that chapter. And what they discussed about is, truthfully, how is your wife or your partner or your lover or whomever um, with you aging and actually deciding to retire?
Mm-hmm.
We talked about my thought process. Yes, Mom and I talked about it when was the right time for me to call it quits. And we had that discussion. But after reading that chapter, I now know that I need to have a little bit more discussion with Mom about how is she really with me retiring? Because even pre-pandemic, I was working at home for a lot of years. I worked remote for a
Mm-hmm.
lot of years. So even though Mom and I have been together in that capacity and somewhat me home 24/7, I really wasn't home 24/7 because I would walk down the hallway, go in the office, close the door, and was there for 12 hours, and still would go away from time to time to go to the office. But I now know that I have to talk with Mom a little bit more about how is it with me retiring. What are some of the things that I need to to be considerate of.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, and drag more of that conversation into ours. So I would just encourage those of you out there, just now retiring or thinking about it, to have that conversation, with your wife, your partner, your lover, to see how they are with it. What are some of the things we need to be sensitive of? I think that will also lead into this topic today about the social aspect of how is it that what we need to do and where we need to build ourselves. So I think that's another very interesting concept of understanding what's the new social norm. How does that impact how I think each day? How do I handle my day? How that enters into time management? All those components we've already addressed in previous episodes. In preparing for this moment in our life that has to be reframed and to grow in order for it to be that meaningful point of time that this should become. And for me, that's going to be something of a good moment in time for some deep thought around, so that I don't make it like a job, as
Mm-hmm.
you've already commented.
Mm-hmm.
Thinking about or having a conversation with Mom, thinking about how and where I should look to find some new contacts, finding folks of like interests, enthusiasm, finding those positive folks, that can easily become a job rather than just letting it happen. And I have to be careful not to slip and fall.
You should
Like I
quit
mentioned,
thinking. Just go
just
do
go
it.
do.
Yeah,
Right.
like
But
we
I'm,
lost
what I'm
all of
saying,
our audience because they're passed out from you saying "think" a million times.
well, whatever I can do to help on a good day like today. So with that is where this discussion needs to still have some further conversation around, and for me to have more self thought around and know where to go outside of just current moments with with Mom, with you, Kristen, and with those few close friends. Because I think it's going to be important for me to enrich this part of our life for both Mom and myself outside of the way we've done it in past years.
Mm-hmm.
You know, and again, don't necessarily know I have all the answers, but I think that's critical so that I can maintain a good balance of self-indulgence with my obligations to do what's right for Mom and to making our life as best as it can. Right? I mean,
Mm-hmm.
that's why we do what we do, why we live the day, and why we, spend it the way we do it hour by hour, and that's what we do and how we live our life. And to live our life with that level of intention to it is critical.
So I think it's simple. I think it should just be yourself, the best version of yourself. So know who you are, know the things that you enjoy, go do those things that you enjoy, put out positive energy. It will attract people who are putting out positive energy as well. And then relationships will naturally develop. And if they're meant to be more, they'll be more. And you don't have to put a lot of work in. And if you have to put a lot of work in, then it's not a good relationship.
Yeah.
And as relationships come and go, embrace that, enjoy the moment while you have them, and be more present and not spend so much time thinking about where am I going to find the friends, what do I need to do to find them, because that time you're spending thinking is wasting time that you could be enjoying that moment, whether it be sitting on the patio with Mom or whatever it might be. Like having your mind constantly going is, while you may not feel like you're working, it's working. Just simple. What do you enjoy doing? Go do it. When you see people, say hello. When you're there every day or every other day, you see them over and over, conversations spark. You go grab coffee, you grab lunch, you go dinner, and now a relationship's developed.
Right.
And I think if you're just going out being your good self, like you're one of the most selfless people, I've said it many times, you're the most selfless people I've ever met. You look to serve others. So continue to do that just in the areas that you want to be doing it, and relationships will come. And whether it's 5 people, 10 people, 100 people, it doesn't matter. Like it's you're going to overanalyze the enjoyment out of retirement and your obligation to taking care of Mom. You know, if you're happy and you're doing what it is that you want to do, then that, like, it's going to lead to a good life. Like, you're retired now, so there's not a huge obligation anymore. You guys are where you need to be. So I just think you need to identify the things you and Mom want to do that are fun. And next time you want to go down to Nashville and go to a concert, like somebody you know from the gym, invite them down. Say, hey, we're going to go to this concert. You want to go? And just go to that. Like, I don't think for someone like yourself, it would be hard to meet people and grow your social network. I do agree your social network is important on many fronts. The science that you highlighted, being around people, having the opportunity to get away from Mom and Mom get away from you. Like, this conversation you need to be having with Mom as well, because her social network is you and the family. And that's pretty much it. That's what it's always been. Which, like, I wish that Mom had more friends and gone out and been more outgoing, but I know that's not her as well, and you can't force anything. So I just think that you spend time doing things you enjoy, be kind to people, help them when they need it, and good things happen. And you don't need to be thinking about where to go and how's it going to be, what's it going to look like. Just let it be. And all that thinking is not going to change anything anyways. It's going to put more pressure on it, and it's going to make it a challenge instead of an opportunity. Full circle.
Full circle. Well, that's a good way to close it on the full circle. I think that does summarize it very well, Jade, and you did a great job bringing it to that closure today, because it shouldn't be a challenge, right? As you said, it should be an opportunity. So I will look to limit the challenge aspect.
You're already overanalyzing. Just go be yourself, do the things you want to do, and just let it be.
Yeah.
That's it.
Let it be.
Nothing else.
One of my most famous Beatles songs, "Let It Be."
Mm-hmm.
So on that note, want to wish all of you a great day. Also, since we are almost mid-May already, we're quickly coming up on Memorial Weekend.
Mm-hmm.
here in Indianapolis, obviously, it's one of our greater months because of the 500 and all the excitement that goes around it. So maybe this year we'll have a little bit more excitement going around town and things being open as we loosen up a little bit. So we'll look forward to that. To each of you out there, thank you for your time of listening to our moment here and discussion. Hopefully it brings some thought process to you. Just never quit searching, never stop enjoying, and make the most of your day. Thank you all. Take care.
See you in the next episode.